Hello, my name is Emma, and this is my story. It is not a fairy tale. It does not have a perfect ending, but it is real. It is the story of how one single day changed my life forever. It began on the first day of college. The morning started with a strange feeling in my stomach. It was a mix of excitement and fear. I woke up before my alarm. The sun was just starting to peek through my window. It painted a soft, orange line on my wall. I stayed in bed for a long time. I just watched that line grow brighter. This was it. The first day of the rest of my life. That is what my dad always said. The thought was heavy. I chose my clothes carefully. A simple pair of jeans. A soft blue sweater. I wanted to look normal. I did not want to stand out. I wanted to be invisible, just for a little while, until I understood this new world. Downstairs, my parents were waiting. My mom made my favorite breakfast, pancakes, but I could not eat much. The fear in my stomach was bigger than the hunger. "Are you nervous, sweetie?" my mom asked. Her voice was gentle. I nodded. I could not find my own voice. "You will be amazing," my dad said. He smiled at me. "Just be yourself." Being myself felt like the hardest thing in the world. I did not even know who I was supposed to be here. The drive to the campus was quiet. I watched the familiar streets of my town disappear. They were replaced by bigger roads. Taller buildings. Everything was new. Everything was different. When we arrived, my dad pulled the car over. The main gate of the college stood before us. It was huge. It was made of old stone and iron. It looked like the entrance to a castle. "Well, here we are," my dad said. I looked at the gate. I looked at the hundreds of students walking through it. They all seemed to know where they were going. They walked with confidence. They laughed with their friends. I felt a wave of panic. I did not want to leave the car. My mom turned around. She looked at me. Her eyes were full of love. "Just take one step, Emma. That's all it takes." I took a deep breath. She was right. One step. I opened the car door. I stepped out. The air was cool. It smelled like cut grass and books and coffee. It was the smell of a new beginning. I waved goodbye to my parents. I watched their car drive away. Then I was alone. Completely alone in a sea of strangers. I held a folded map in my hand. My palms were sweaty. The paper felt damp. I walked through the giant gate. I was officially a college student. The campus was even bigger on the inside. There were brick buildings covered in ivy. There were huge green lawns. There was a tall clock tower in the distance. Its hands pointed to 9 o'clock. My first class started soon. I opened the map. It was confusing. A mess of lines and names. I tried to find my building. I walked down a long path. The path was crowded. People bumped into me. They did not say sorry. They did not even see me. I felt like a ghost. I was nervous. I was excited. And honestly, I was very, very lost. New faces everywhere. New classes. A new life. I felt a tear prick my eye. I was overwhelmed. I wanted to run back to the gate. I wanted to call my mom. I stopped walking. I took a deep breath. I needed to find a quiet place. Just for a moment. My eyes scanned the lawn. And then, I saw him. He was sitting under a big oak tree. The tree was the oldest one on campus. Its branches were thick and gnarled. They spread out like the arms of a wise old giant. The leaves created a perfect circle of shade. Sunlight filtered through the leaves. It danced on the grass in little golden patches. He was sitting in the middle of that gentle light. He had a large sketchbook in his lap. A pencil moved in his hand. It moved with a quiet grace. He was completely focused. He did not notice the noise around him. He did not notice the crowds. He was in his own world, a world of paper and lead. His hair was dark and messy. It fell across his forehead. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and faded jeans. He seemed calm. He seemed peaceful. The world around me was a storm of chaos, but he was a small island of perfect silence. I do not know why I stopped. My feet just froze on the path. I stared. He was drawing something with great intensity. He would draw a line. Then he would pause. He would look up at the clock tower. Then he would look back down at his page. He was capturing the world. It felt like the whole loud campus went quiet. The noises faded away. All I could see was this boy under a tree. At that exact moment, he lifted his head. His pencil stopped moving. His eyes met mine. They were kind eyes, the color of warm coffee. They were deep and thoughtful. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He just saw me. In a crowd of hundreds, he saw me. The lost girl with the crumpled map. Something inside my chest whispered a single word. Special. My heart did a strange little flip. It was a feeling I had never felt before. A small, shy smile touched my lips. I could not help it. He gave a tiny nod in return. A silent hello. It was a small gesture, but it felt enormous. It felt like a promise. I quickly looked down at my map. My cheeks were on fire. I pretended to study the lines on the paper. I did not want him to see me blushing. After a moment, I started walking again. My steps were a little shaky, but the panic was gone. I was not lost anymore. I found my building. I found my class. I sat down at a desk. The professor started talking, but I did not hear a word. All I could see were those kind, coffee-colored eyes. His name was Ryan. I did not know it then, but he had already changed my world. He had turned my first day from a scary ending into a beautiful beginning. Days turned into weeks. The scary new campus became familiar. I learned the paths. I learned the shortcuts. The giant buildings did not seem so giant anymore. I made a few friends in my classes. We studied together in the library. We complained about homework. It was nice, but something was still missing. Every day I looked for the oak tree. And every day I looked for him. Ryan. He was always there. In the same spot. It was his spot. He would be there in the morning sun. He would be there in the late afternoon shade. Sketching. Drawing. Creating entire worlds on paper. I was too shy to talk to him. What would I even say? Hi, I'm the girl who stared at you on the first day. The thought made my cheeks burn. So I just watched from a distance. It became my own quiet ritual. I saw him draw the campus clock tower. He captured every brick, every detail. I saw him draw birds sitting on a telephone wire. He made them look like musical notes. I saw him draw the faces of strangers. He found the stories in their eyes. His art was not just beautiful. It was full of life. It was full of feeling. Then one afternoon, it happened. I was rushing from the library. My arms were full of heavy books. I was late for my music theory class. I was not watching where I was going. My foot caught on an uneven stone in the path. I stumbled. My books went flying. They scattered all over the ground. Papers flew everywhere. A soft wind caught them. They danced across the lawn. I felt so stupid, so clumsy. My face turned bright red. I knelt down. I started to gather my things. Suddenly, a hand reached down in front of me. It was a boy's hand. It was holding one of my stray papers. I looked up. It was Ryan. He was kneeling in front of me. He was helping me pick up my books. "You dropped these," he said. His voice was quiet. It was even nicer than I had imagined. "Thank you," I whispered. My own voice was a little shaky. He piled the last book onto my stack. He looked at me and smiled. A real, genuine smile this time. It lit up his entire face. It made my heart do that little flip again. "I'm Ryan," he said. "I'm Emma," I replied. That was it. That was our beginning. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was simple, quiet, perfect. After that day, we started talking. First, it was just small hellos when we passed each other. "Hi, Emma." "Hi, Ryan." Then, he asked me about my classes. I asked him about his art. One day, he waited for me after my class. "Do you want to get some coffee?" he asked. I said yes. Of course, I said yes. We sat in the campus cafe. He showed me his sketchbook. He was hesitant at first. He was shy about his work. "It's not very good," he said. It was more than good. It was incredible. He flipped through the pages. I saw the clock tower. I saw the birds on the wire. I saw drawings of his family, his dog, his dreams. His drawings were not just pictures. They were stories. They were his feelings on paper. "You see the world differently," I told him, amazed. He looked down at his book. "I just draw what I feel," he said softly. It was my turn to share. I felt a knot of nerves in my stomach. "I have a secret," I said. He looked at me. His eyes were curious. "I play the violin," I confessed. I had played since I was a little girl. My violin was my real voice. It was how I expressed all the feelings I could not put into words. It was the most personal thing in my life. A huge smile spread across Ryan's face. "Really? That's amazing." "It's just a hobby," I said quickly. I was afraid of being judged. "I would love to hear you play sometime," he said. His voice was sincere. No one had ever asked that before. My family had heard me practice, of course, but no one had ever asked to listen. I was nervous, but looking into his kind eyes, I heard myself say yes. A few days later, I took him to the music building. It was evening. The building was empty. The hallways echoed with our footsteps. I led him to a small, private practice room. The room smelled of old wood and rosin. I took out my violin. My hands were trembling. The room was quiet. I could hear my own breathing. I took a deep breath. I placed the violin under my chin. I played a soft melody. It was a simple song. A song about hope and new beginnings. I closed my eyes. I forgot Ryan was there. I forgot my nerves. There was only me and the music. The notes flowed from the strings. They told a story. My story. When I played the final note, it hung in the air for a long moment. I opened my eyes. Ryan was not looking at me. He was looking at my violin. There were tears in his eyes. "That was beautiful," he whispered. His voice was thick with emotion. "It sounded like your soul." His words went straight to my heart. He understood. He truly understood. That night, from my window, I saw a light on in his room. I could see his silhouette. He was hunched over his sketchbook. He was drawing. The next day, he showed me the drawing. It was a picture of a girl. She was standing in a room full of light. She was holding a violin. She had my face. Our friendship grew deeper. It blossomed into something more. Ryan and I were always together. We were inseparable. We were a team. The artist and the musician. The boy with the sketchbook and the girl with the violin. We found our own special places on campus. The oak tree was our meeting spot. The quiet corner of the library was our study hall. The small, family-owned cafe off campus was our talking place. We spent hours there. We drank coffee. We shared secrets. I learned about his family. He had a younger sister who he adored. He had a complicated relationship with his father. His father did not understand his art. He wanted Ryan to study business. This was a deep source of pain for him. I told him about my own fears. I was afraid of performing in front of people. I loved my music, but the idea of being on a stage terrified me. I was afraid I was not good enough. He listened. He really listened. He did not try to fix my problems. He just understood them. "Your music is a gift, Emma," he would say. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you." He became more than just a friend. He became my best friend. He understood my silences. I understood his art. He was the first person to see the real me. The quiet, nervous girl. The girl who felt too much. And he did not just see her. He liked her. One evening in late October, we were sitting by the campus lake. The sun was setting. The sky was a masterpiece of orange, pink, and purple. The colors reflected on the calm water. It was beautiful. It looked like one of Ryan's drawings. We were not talking. We were just sitting side by side. We were watching the sky change. It was a comfortable silence. The kind you can only share with someone you trust completely. He turned to me. The sunset painted his face in a warm glow. He gently touched my cheek. His hand was warm. His touch sent a shiver through me. He leaned in slowly. He kissed me. It was a soft kiss. A gentle, hesitant kiss. It was my first kiss. My entire world exploded with color. It felt like 1,000 violins playing a symphony inside my chest. It was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. He pulled back slightly. He looked into my eyes. "Emma," he whispered my name. The way he said it, it sounded like a song. I knew in that moment. I was completely and hopelessly in love with him. He was my first love. And it was the most beautiful time of my life. Everything was brighter with him. The world was full of music and color. He would draw pictures for me. Silly cartoons to make me laugh. Beautiful portraits that made me cry. I would play my violin for him. I played happy songs. I played sad songs. He said my music helped him draw. Our love was a quiet art, a beautiful, gentle melody. I felt safe with him. I felt seen. I felt happy. I thought our story was a fairy tale. I thought it would last forever. I was so naive. I was so wrong. Life never stays simple. It does not follow a script. It has twists. It has turns. It has unexpected goodbyes. My perfect story was about to have a very painful twist. It was a cold evening in November. The leaves on the trees were now mostly brown. They crunched under our feet when we walked. Autumn was ending. Winter was coming. Ryan was quiet all day. I met him after his last class. He did not smile when he saw me. He just gave me a small, sad nod. We walked to our favorite cafe. He did not talk much. He just stared into his coffee cup. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the air between us. It was a heavy, cold feeling. "Are you okay?" I finally asked. He looked up. "Let's go for a walk," he said. His voice was strained. We walked to the lake, to our bench, the same bench where he had first kissed me. The sky was gray. The water was dark. The world seemed to match his mood. He looked at me. His eyes were full of a deep, unbearable pain. The same coffee-colored eyes that I loved so much. Now, they were breaking my heart. He took my hand. His hand was cold as ice. "Emma," he started. His voice was a broken whisper. I had to lean in to hear him. "I'm leaving." The words were simple. Just 2 words. But they hit me like a physical blow. The air rushed out of my lungs. "What do you mean?" I asked. My own voice trembled. "Leaving for the weekend?" He shook his head slowly. He would not look at me. He looked at the dark water. "I'm leaving college," he said. "I have to leave. I can't stay in this city anymore." My world stopped. The ground felt like it had disappeared from under me. "Why?" My voice cracked. Tears were already forming in my eyes. "Where are you going?" "I don't understand." "It's complicated, Emma. My family, my dad," his voice trailed off. He squeezed my hand. "They need me to come home. Things are not good." He looked so broken, so lost. I wanted to help him, but I did not know how. "But what about us?" I asked. My heart was screaming the question. What about everything? He finally turned to look at me. A single tear rolled down his cheek. It traced a path through the pain on his face. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you." And that was it. There was no big fight. There was no long, dramatic explanation. Just a quiet, devastating goodbye. Just like that, my world was ending. The boy who drew my smile. The boy who loved my music. The boy who made my heart race. He was breaking it into a million tiny pieces. He stood up from the bench. He leaned down. He kissed my forehead. It was a cold, final kiss. He walked away. He did not look back. I just sat there, on our bench, frozen, empty, shattered. I couldn't breathe. The cold autumn evening was now my own personal winter. My first love was my first heartbreak, and it was the most painful thing I had ever felt. I do not remember how I got back to my dorm room. My feet moved, but I was not telling them to. My body felt like it was not mine. I closed the door to my room. The world outside was full of sound. Students laughing, music playing, life going on. But inside my room, there was only silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. I fell onto my bed. I did not take off my coat. I did not turn on the light. And I cried. I cried until my throat was raw. I cried until my eyes were swollen shut. I cried until I had no tears left. But the pain was still there. It was a physical thing. A giant hole in the middle of my chest. He was gone. He was really gone. The next day, I woke up. The sun was shining, but the world felt gray, lifeless. I went to the oak tree. His spot was empty. The grass was just grass now. It was not special anymore. I went to the cafe. Our table was empty. It was just a table. I went to my classes like a ghost. I sat in the back. I did not talk to anyone. The professor talked. I did not listen. The words were just meaningless sounds. The days started to blur together, one gray day after another. I stopped talking to my friends. They tried to help. They asked me what was wrong. But how could I explain? How could I make them understand that my world had lost all its color, all its music? There was only silence. A loud, deafening, terrible silence. Food had no taste. It was just fuel to keep my body going. Sunlight had no warmth. It was just a bright light that hurt my eyes. I was living in a black and white movie. A silent movie. My violin case was in the corner of my room. It was covered in a thin layer of dust. I could not look at it. Looking at it was like looking at a ghost. A ghost of a happy girl. A girl who believed in love. How could I play music? My heart was broken. My soul was silent. The music was dead inside me. Ryan had taken it with him. I thought my story had ended right there, on that cold bench by the lake. I thought I would be the sad, broken girl forever. I thought the pain would never go away. It was a constant ache, a permanent shadow on my heart. The silence was my only companion. It was the only thing that was real. That silence was the sound of my broken heart. I was wrong. So very wrong. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2. The seasons changed. Autumn's gray gave way to winter's white. The campus was covered in snow. It was beautiful, but I did not see the beauty. I only felt the cold. The pain was still there. It was a part of me now, a dull ache that sat in my chest. I was surviving. But I was not living. One cold afternoon, I was in my room. I was supposed to be studying for an exam, but the words in my textbook were swimming in front of my eyes. I gave up. I just stared at the wall. My gaze fell on the violin case in the corner. It was sitting there, silent, patient. I looked at it for a long time. I remembered Ryan's face. I remembered the tears in his eyes when I played for him. It sounded like your soul, he had said. My soul was broken. It was in pieces. But maybe it could still make a sound. I stood up. My legs felt heavy. I walked over to the case. My fingers traced the dusty surface. With a trembling hand, I opened the latches. I lifted the lid. My violin was there. It was beautiful. The dark wood seemed to glow in the dim light. It looked sad. It looked lonely. I picked it up. It felt familiar in my hands, like an old friend. I placed it under my chin. The smooth wood was cool against my skin. I took the bow. My hand was shaking. I drew the bow across the strings. The sound was terrible. It was a sharp, screeching sound. It was ugly. It was out of tune. It was the sound of pain. The sound of my broken heart. I wanted to put it down. I wanted to close the case and never open it again. But I didn't. I played another note. And another. Each note was a tear. Each chord was a memory. I started to play. I did not play a song. I just played the feelings. I played the happy memories. Our first hello under the oak tree. Our first laugh in the cafe. Our first kiss by the lake. The music was sweet and light. Then I played the sad memories. His empty eyes, his cold hand, his last goodbye. The music became dark and heavy. The notes were sharp and painful. I poured all my heartbreak into the music. I poured my anger, my sadness, my confusion, my loneliness. I played until my fingers hurt. I played until my arms ached. I played until tears were streaming down my face. When I finished, I was completely exhausted. I lowered the violin. The room was silent again. But this silence was different. It was not empty. It was peaceful. For the first time in months, I felt something other than pain. I felt a release. I started practicing again. It became my new ritual. Every single day, after my last class, my violin became my reason to wake up in the morning. It was my therapy. It was my best friend. It was the one thing that would never leave me. I played the sadness out of my heart. I tuned the pain into a melody. And slowly, something new started to grow in the empty space in my chest. Strength. The pain was still there. I knew it would always be a small part of me, a scar on my heart. But it was changing. It was becoming a part of my music. It was making my music stronger, more powerful, more honest. My broken heart was learning to sing a new song, a song of survival, a song of hope, a song of me. 1 year passed, an entire year, 365 days. I was a different person. The shy, lost girl from the first day of college was gone. I was still quiet. I still preferred books to parties. But I was not weak. I was not afraid. The college was having its annual arts festival. The grand finale was a big performance in the main auditorium. There was a spot for a solo violin performance. My music professor, Mr. Davies, called me into his office. "Emma," he said, "you have been working so hard. Your music has transformed. It has a soul. I want you to perform at the festival." The old me would have said no immediately. The thought would have sent me into a panic. But the new me just listened. I was scared. Of course, I was scared. But I was more scared of letting my fear win. I thought about my journey, the heartbreak, the silence, the pain, the long nights practicing until my fingers bled. This performance was not just a performance. It was a declaration. I looked at my professor. "Yes," I said. My voice was clear and steady. "I'll do it." The night of the festival arrived. I stood backstage. I was wearing a simple black dress. I clutched my violin. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs. I could hear the crowd on the other side of the curtain. It was a low murmur of hundreds of voices. I felt a wave of panic. I can't do this. Then I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes. I thought about Ryan, not with sadness, but with a strange sense of gratitude. The pain he caused had almost broken me, but it had also made me. This performance was not for him. It was not for the crowd. It was not for my professor. It was for me, for the girl who got lost and found herself again. And now a voice boomed over the speakers. "Please welcome, with a special solo violin performance, Emma." The curtain opened. I walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding. They were hot. I could not see the faces in the audience. There was only a vast sea of darkness. I walked to the center of the stage. I stood there, alone. I took a deep breath. I raised my violin, and I began to play. The music filled the huge hall. It was a song I had written myself. My story. It started softly, a few hesitant notes. They spoke of a girl, lost and alone on her first day. Then the music swelled. It became a happy, hopeful melody. It was the sound of a smile, the sound of a boy under a tree. It was the sound of two people sharing secrets, the sound of first love. The tempo grew faster. It was full of joy, full of light. Then, a single, sharp, painful note cut through the melody. The music broke. It fell into darkness. It was slow and heavy. It was the sound of goodbye, the sound of a heart breaking. The violin cried. It screamed with pain. The notes were full of tears, full of silence. For a long moment, there was only sadness in the music. But then a new note appeared, a single, quiet note. But it was determined. It grew stronger. It fought against the darkness. It became a new melody, a melody of strength, a song of survival. The music started to climb, higher and higher. It was not sad anymore. It was powerful. It was defiant. It was full of fire. It was the sound of a girl picking up the pieces of her broken heart and building something new, something stronger. The final notes were powerful. They were triumphant. They soared through the hall, full of hope and promise. They were the sound of a girl who was finally free. The last note hung in the air. And then, silence. For a moment, nothing happened. The entire auditorium was completely still. Then, one person in the darkness started clapping. Then another. And then the entire hall erupted in applause. It was a thunderous sound, a wave of sound washing over me. Tears rolled down my cheeks. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of joy, tears of victory. At that moment, standing on that stage, under the bright lights, I realized the truth. Ryan didn't end my story. He only gave it a turning point. His goodbye was not my end. It was my true beginning. Because that heartbreak, that silence, that pain, it turned me into someone stronger. It gave me my music. It gave me my voice. And that turning point, it made me unstoppable.